Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our tactical breakdown series. Your second episode of the day now, but fourth episode in general for the channel. That might be a record for the channel. The amount of shows we've done in one day. Anyway, this isn't live. This is a pre-recorded show. Of course, it is a Wednesday, which means I'm on my shift over at 101 Great Goals from 3 to 11. So, of course, I'm pre-recording this to make sure it goes out before I start. Non-stop work is a Wednesday. 4 shows before I even start my hour shift. That's dedication for you. If you are new to the channel, welcome. First of all, over at TGT, we break down all of Arsenal's transfer targets analytically and statistically with the help of some expert insight, as well as you're going to see today. We've already done a show today on James Maddison with the help of the Athletics' Rob Tanner, and you see experts of that ilk across all of our shows. And today I'm joined by Rich Hall from Football Italia and the creator of Gentleman Ultra to break down Sassuolo and Italy midfielder Manuel Locatelli. We've seen this guy linked to Arsenal for a period of days now, basically from the Italian media much more than the English-based media. Reported of a €40 million fee that Arsenal are interested in acquiring him. Unsurprisingly, he's a very good player. But also they have very, very strong interest from Juventus, which is supposedly where he would prefer to end up. But we are going to go straight into our expert insight and hear from Rich Hall and see what he has to say about Manuel Locatelli.
So Arsenal are linked with Manuel Locatelli, and it's quite interesting that they are, because a lot of Italian teams have sort of been taking notice again this season with Locatelli. It's quite a surprise in some ways of just how frustrated he must be at his career, because, and when I say that, it's because he started off at Milan and was really highly rated. One of the great Italian youngsters, was supposed to be coming in to really set the world on fire. And let's not forget, he's only 23 years old now. He's played fantastically well at Milan, but there was a good squad and they were also undergoing a lot of changes, so it was very, very difficult for him to really establish himself. And ironically, if Milan and a few Italian clubs are guilty of this, had have looked at their youth systems more, looked at the players, the younger players, planned for the future instead of trying to always just maintain the Champions League or maintain to keep in the title race, they would have done a lot better, but they didn't. Since he's gone to Sassuolo, he's really come on. I mean, he's been allowed to get game time, and that's the main thing. Playing along the likes of Domenico Berardi, Boga this season. There's been a lot of players who have really been able to develop under De Zerbi. He's had a really strong season. Only 4 goals, but look at it. He's a Mazzella, a deep line midfielder. Sometimes plays on the side of a 3 and a 4-3-3, or he can play deep lying. Don't believe the comparisons with Pirlo. I'm not really giving that. I don't think he's that sort of player yet. His range of passing is good, of course it is, but he's good, he's quick, he's a tough tackler as well, and he's developing his game as an all-round midfielder in some respects. For me, it's it could be, I mean, the fees can be touted. I've seen all sorts of fees this season for him. Especially, but if you take a look at one of the best midfielders in Italy, Nicolo Barella, also 23 from Inter, being touted up with over 100 million. I think some of the fees I've heard for around 35 million are too short. If you get him for that, it's fantastic. Does Sassuolo need the money? Not really, because the way they develop and sell players on, they sell them at the right time and when they want to. I don't think this is particularly potentially the right time for Locatelli, unless this Euros goes to fantastically well. I think that you watch him during the Euros, his link-up play with Barella, the way that they operate is fairly similar, although Barella is much more of an elite version, but that doesn't mean that Locatelli can't do that. I think that this season has been a breakout season for him, and it's really helped him develop. Having a coach like De Zerbi who has such confidence in him, has allowed him to make mistakes, allowed him to explore that, yeah, he doesn't have to be timid at Milan and play the ball always to the side. He can look for those diagonal passes. Sometimes I think when he did try and do that, especially in his younger days, he was often criticised for doing so, as it jeopardised his situations. So overall, I mean, for Arsenal, is it a good purchase? Yes, because you've got a young player here who's fit, quick, good range of passing, and also as well, I think the more he grows, the more he's growing up as a player, what you're finding is that he's games tend to go from a slow tempo to a quick tempo. Let's have a good example of that. If you look at France in the Euros and their opening game against Germany, they knew how to take that level to slow to quick, slow to quick. That's not easy to do, especially when you've got certain players in the squad who are a bit timid of doing that and making mistakes. Locatelli is one of those players who he can break up play, and equally, if he sees a ball long, whether it's short or long, he will make the right decision most of the time. So it's an interesting one. He would still have to develop, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, in his position, he could play another 10, 13 plus years. And the experience he's got all together now, I don't know the number of games off the top of my head, but I'd say between Sassuolo and Milan, it must be over 100. So, and he's got international experience. So, depending on the fee, again, you look at Sassuolo as a club, they won't get rid of all their assets, but watch Berardi as well. Watch Berardi, totally different player, but Domenico Berardi is Sassuolo's other main big talent in the international squad. And there's also a guy called Jeremy Boga, so keep an eye on that. Because if one of those moves, Boga, which I think Boga's more likely to, then the other two will probably stay. So Atalanta very heavily linked with Boga. But again, it's quite interesting to see. It gives you an idea of who and when they might move. Because Sassuolo are a team who don't really invest a huge amount, but they manage to bring youth players through who other teams often discard and then sell them on at some point. For me, if I'm starting next season with Sassuolo, I'm thinking, I'm really wanting the likes of Berardi and of course, Manuel Locatelli.
Massive thank you there to Rich, who decided to drive the whole way to the Estadio Olimpico to do that tactical breakdown. I am, of course, joking. But a massive thank you to Rich, who, of course, you can find on Twitter at RichHall80. Some interesting thoughts around a player that is, I mean, for me, this is like dreamland stuff to be linked to get someone of Locatelli's level. And you're going to see that with the stats in a second. He is I feel like he's a little bit out of reach for Arsenal, which is a real shame because for me, this is the type of player that Arsenal needs to be getting. They need to be targeting players at this level, this quality, to get back where they need to be, which is ultimately, again, competing for that top 4 spot initially before they can ever dream of looking towards the biggest titles in the game. But let's have a look at those statistics to start off with. And of course, we've got our expert insight, and now we move on to the stats area. What's interesting is we're going to see how he compares to Lokonga. We know that he's very much linked with Arsenal. We've had a bid rejected for him now as well. We're also going to see how he compares to the one, the only Yves Bissouma and Granit Xhaka as well. So let's look at their heat maps first of all. You can see he does skew ever so slightly to the left-hand side, but can play across the pitch and does cover a good area of the pitch. He's very central in his positioning now, and you can see from that intensity in the middle of the park in terms of where he finds himself on the pitch. And he does a lot of his work actually in the opposition half. And we're going to see some stats that correlate to that in a second. If we go to his defensive side of his game, he's nearly got as many defensive duels as Yves Bissouma, more so than Lokonga and Xhaka, and he's winning more as well at 65.1%, nearly as high as Bissouma's. Again, very good defensively in that area. Interceptions, 4.59 is the second highest on our list, behind Lokonga, ever so slightly higher than that of Bissouma. In terms of the losses, this is where it slightly falls down. He has got the most losses of all these players. However, as you can see, from the 34.5% being in his own half, being the lowest across this list, he does tend to lose the ball a lot more trying to do things in the opposition half. It's not like he's being careless in his own half. He's trying to make stuff happen for Sassuolo. In terms of recoveries, 8.01 again is the lowest, with 33.9% being in the opposition half. Recoveries don't seem to be part of Locatelli's game in comparison to, say, your Bissouma, Xhaka and Lokonga, but they're still high. 8.01 is still a high amount of recoveries per match, but it's not as necessarily part of his game as some of the other comparatives that we've seen so far. If we're looking at his passing, 89.8% is the second highest on this list behind Granit Xhaka, but he has the most passes of all of these. He nearly has double the amount of passes per game as Yves Bissouma, and we're going to see these passing stats get even more impressive as we go through them. 7.04 long passes with a 64.7% accuracy is only lower than that of Granit Xhaka, although he's making nearly 2 long passes more than the Swiss midfielder. Passing to the final third are very impressive. 14 final third per match in Serie A. Very, very impressive there with an 80.1% accuracy. He's also very good for that type of pass. Passes into the box. He doesn't fall down on this area either. In fact, he has the highest number of passes into the box in comparison to, say, Lokonga, Xhaka, and Yves Bissouma as well with 2.69. And with a 51.1%, that might be the third lowest in terms of accuracy, but his proactiveness to get the ball into the box from his midfield position is very good too. Forward to backward pass ratio shows how progressive and positive he is with 24.96 forward passes on average per game in comparison to just under 9 backward passes, more than double the amount of forward to backward passes being made. In terms of his dribbling, not necessarily a huge part of his game, only just under 2 dribbles per match, but with a 54.4% success rate, he is quite good at them, but he's not progressively doing these dribbles from one side of the pitch to the other. He's usually in short bursts, and you see that with the 1.08 progressive runs, which is lower than everyone else on this list. We round off the stats by looking how good he is his shooting. 66.7% of shots we're seeing here are hitting the target. 1.17. This is only showing the last 75 stats, but it is positive that we're seeing there with the amount of shots that he's taking per match. So that rounds off the shooting and all of the other statistics for his game. What I'm interested to see about Locatelli is if this progresses any further. For Arsenal, this could be a huge, huge deal for them to get this kind of player in and done at the club. It would be very impressive to see it take shape and to see it happen. I'm not sure if it will. I would give this quite a low likelihood in comparison to, say, some of the other players like Lokonga, who looks a solid 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of likelihood. I'd move Locatelli down to your 4s, 5s because of the interest from Juventus. So I think that would probably scuppers Arsenal's hopes, to be honest, of getting him. But if Arsenal are serious about really improving their squads, this is the type of player that we need to see Arsenal moving for. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. Obviously, there's no Q&A at the end of this because this is a pre-recorded show. I am working during the time that you are watching this live. But thank you ever so much. I hope you enjoyed the Italian game that follows this show at 8 o'clock against the Swiss. So we'll see Locatelli, maybe, if he starts over Verratti, up against Granit Xhaka. So you'll have to see and report back as to how those two compare in the middle of the park. Please make sure you drop a like and subscription on the channel if you've enjoyed it, and turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. And you can join the channel as well by clicking that join button to become a member and join our Discord server if you become an expert member, and you can help support the channel with lots of extra stuff coming your way in return. See you again very, very soon, guys, for tomorrow morning's 8 a.m. show. It's been a pleasure as always, and as always, up the Arsenal.